Okay, I'm going to do some adjustments to a normal tangent function. Okay, normally tangent, we have our asymptotes where cosine would be 0. So values that make cosine of certain values give me 0, so those values have to be eliminated with asymptotes. So pi halves on the unit circle, we talked about pi halves. We eliminate from our domain intervals of pi half. Pi half, 1 pi half, or negative pi halves, 3 pi halves, 5 pi halves, and so on. So a normal tangent function has asymptotes at negative pi halves, and so on, and it kind of goes through 1, 0, negative 1, down like so. All right? Let's look at this function. I've got an a, negative 2, tan of b, 1/2, parentheses, x minus c, phase shift, pi fourth, parentheses, plus d, plus 1, a vertical shift. Okay? So, let's start thinking about our normal asymptotes of negative pi halves to pi halves are now going to be exchanged by this period. Remember, our period is now from here to here, which is pi. So now we're doing period equals pi over b, which is pi over 1/2. Okay? This 2 comes up, and that equals 2 pi is my period. Okay, so my asymptotes are going to be 2 pi apart, not pi apart. Okay? Guess what else? What's always in the middle? 0. Okay? Sine is my numerator. I don't worry about the numerator at all. The numerator can have any values. All I worry about is the denominator not being 0. But in the middle of these graphs is always the 0 point. Okay? Where we come down normally like so through here. Okay? Guess what? Oops. Okay. So now, instead of it being pi, I'm going to make it, those asymptotes, that whole graph, from asymptote to asymptote, is the period of my tangent graph. So I'm just going to go, okay, my period is now, its period is pi over b for tangent or cotangent. Pi over 1/2 is 2 pi. So now I'm going to go 2 pi apart, but I know the middle of my graph is always 0. So right here is, instead of going from pi, I'm going to go from here to here. I'm putting my asymptotes here at pi. Oops. Okay, and negative pi. All right? So now my period goes from here to here. Okay? The middle of my graph is going to be, right in the middle is where my 0 is. Okay? And sine of 0, whether it's 1/2 of 0, is still 0. So that's going to be, I don't care, if I plug in 0 for x, 1/2 times 0 is 0, and tangent of 0 is 0. Okay? Because sine is 0 there. Okay? So, all right, so here's my 0. All right. What else do I notice from my tangent graph? The middle of each half is either 1 or negative 1. Okay? So from this part, remember, from our unit circle, all right, this was our tangent graph. This was the negative part. So the middle of this half is where I had negative 1. It used to be over here. So in the middle of this half is still negative 1. The middle of this half is positive 1. And my graph will look something like this. Okay, well now it's a period of 2 pi. Okay? All right, and that makes sense. Pi halves times 1/2 is pi quarters. What's tangent of pi quarters? 1. Okay, so that's going to work out. Negative pi halves times 1/2 is negative pi quarters. What's tangent of negative pi quarters? Negative 1. So this is working out very nice. Now I just have to do what? Now I'm just going to do flips phase shifts. I'll just kind of change my values here. This -2, the negative flips it and multiplies this by 2. So -1 times -2, here's 1, 2. I'm flipping it. 0 stays the same. 1 times -2 comes down, -1, -2. Okay? So now this graph is kind of like so. Alright? And now all I have to do is shift everything right, asymptotes included. So this point, all my points are going to come right. Let's make that black. Pi quarters, which is going to be 1 unit here, here, and here, and so as the asymptotes. Okay? So they all come right, and then, guess what? +1. So they're all going to move up 1. 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. And I'll put that in kind of greenish here. So here's my final. Notice how it came up 1. My last thing was the vertical shift up 1. Okay, so black asymptotes, and here's all this kind of, here's my asymptotes were in black here. They moved over a quarter. Okay, so it's a mess, but the big thing is the period. The 1/2, pi over 1/2 is 2 pi. I went from this right here, from -pi to pi halves to -pi to pi. The center of my graph is always 0. And then the middle of each half is either going to be -1 and 1. And the rest goes to negative infinity and positive infinity. So that's a way we can affect our graphs, okay? We'll work more with the same thing we can do with secant and cosecant, where we change our cosine and sine periods, either shrink or whatever, and change our asymptotes and so forth. We'll do more of this. This is just a little video to get you to think how to attack these problems, okay?